Well, hello and welcome back. My name is MaryAnn Walker, and I help highly sensitive people and recovering people pleasers learn how to navigate their deep emotions. And one of the ways that I do that is by helping them learn how to better manage their mind. And today we're going to talk about something that is incredibly freeing once you really, truly, fully understand it. This has been life-changing for me, and I know it's going to be life-changing for you as well. Are you ready? The root cause of any problem is almost always our thinking. And I get it. You're probably thinking, well, that sounds a little overly simplified. Or you might even be thinking, no, MaryAnn, you do not understand. My thinking isn't the problem. That person over there, they're the problem. This situation over here, that's the problem. But the truth is that the pain that we experience, it usually comes from the meaning that we have attached to those things. It comes from our thoughts. It's how we're choosing to think about that person over there. It's how we're choosing to think about that situation. And so let's really get down to the basics and then we'll kind of fill it in from there, okay? So first of all, what is a thought? A thought is simply a sentence in your brain. That's it. It is just a sentence in your brain. But this tiny little sentence, we give so much power to it. That tiny little sentence is what's determining how it is that you're feeling about the world around you, which determines how it is that you're showing up. So believe it or not, every single circumstance that you may experience in life, it is neutral until we have a thought about it. And there are countless ways to think about it. Now you're probably thinking, no, there's some things where everybody absolutely 100% needs to think and feel the same way. If you're thinking that, I want you to look at the current political climate here in the US and around the world, okay? Every single person is going to have very strong feelings about specific subjects, and they're going to believe that no, this is absolute truth and everybody should think and feel the same way. But the truth is, there are countless ways to think about it. For example, some common thoughts that people have are things like, I don't think they like me very much. I think I'm too much. I think I'm too little. I'm not enough. I'm inadequate in some way. Something is very, very wrong here. And when those thoughts are running through your mind, then they feel real, right? It feels like we're just broadcasting the news. But these are not facts. These are just thoughts. They're just sentences in our brain. And the really empowering thing about this is that thoughts can be questioned. They can be examined and looked at. We can poke holes in these thoughts. And thoughts can be changed. So when you start to differentiate your thoughts from the circumstances or the actual facts of the situation, then a whole lot of that mind drama, it just melts away. And right about now, you're probably thinking, wait, really? I can just eliminate my mind drama? Oh yeah, maybe you're even having mind drama right now about what I'm telling you. You're fighting me on it, saying, no, this can't be true. And it's increasing the volume on your mind drama. But truly, when you change how it is that you think about a situation, you change how you feel about a situation, and then you change how you're showing up in the world. And as you really start to look at this, you're going to start to notice what an amazing storyteller you are. And you're going to start to notice how often it is that you're actually writing stories when you think that you are just broadcasting the news. So, for example, you might come to me and think you're broadcasting the news by saying, it is too hot outside. Is it too hot outside? Or is it just 85 degrees outside? Because those are two very, very different things. 85 degrees is a fact. Everybody can look at the app on their phone. They can look at the thermometer out on their house and they can say, oh yeah, it's absolutely 85 degrees. We can all agree on that. But the thought that it's too hot, everybody's going to have a different thought around that. Because one person might say, boy, it's too hot outside. Another person might say, no, it's actually too cold. I wish it were warmer. And somebody else might say, you know what? This is absolutely perfect. So it's the exact same circumstance, but everybody's going to have a different thought about it. Okay, here's another example. Let's say that you are recently going through a breakup and somebody comes and asks you about that breakup. And your first thought is, what a rude person. They should not be asking me about that. Now, are they actually a rude person? Or did they just ask you a question about your breakup and you don't really want to answer it right now? We can think about this in so many different ways, right? We might see that, oh, that is very invasive. They should not be asking me that question. Or you might think, boy, that was actually kind of them to inquire. Maybe the question was a little off, but you can see that their intention was to make sure that you're cared for and that you're doing okay. They know that you're having a hard time. So it is a neutral fact that they asked you a question about your breakup. But whatever you choose to think about it is going to impact how it is that you respond in that particular relationship. When we learn how to separate out the facts from the story, then we're able to create a lot of space for clarity. Because the interesting truth is that we create a lot of struggles within our own minds. We tell ourselves stories that, okay, this absolutely means this. I'm going to tell myself a story about it. And then we retell that story so many times that we start to really believe it. And then we start to assume that it is absolute truth. We start thinking, well, yeah, this must be true. Why else would I be feeling this way? But feelings are not facts. And our feelings, they come from our thoughts. Now, you're allowed to believe whatever thoughts you want to believe. But if you're feeling uncomfortable, I want you to ask yourself this question, okay? Ask yourself, is this thought helping me? Or is it only creating pain for me? Now, let me give you an example from one of my clients. Okay, I'm going to change a few of the circumstances here just for anonymity, but here's the general idea, okay? So I had a client come to me that was really having a lot of negative thoughts about her husband. She came to me telling me a lot of story. Okay, now notice all the things she's telling me, it's just story. I have no idea what the actual problem is, but she's telling me things like, my husband doesn't respect me. I don't think he even likes me. I feel so unsupported. He will do anything to not spend time with me. He is so inconsiderate. And you know what? This is probably the beginning of the end for us. Now imagine for a moment how you would feel if these were the thoughts you were having about your partner. More than likely, you'd be feeling angry, resentful, hurt, disconnected. And that is exactly how she was feeling towards her husband. Now she's telling me all of these things like she's just broadcasting the news. But I actually have no idea what happened. So I asked her, I said, okay, can you tell me what actually happened? Like, where is all this coming from? And then she told me this. She said, well, my husband's meeting ran late. So yeah, he was 30 minutes late for a dinner reservation. Now, husband being 30 minutes late for dinner reservation, that's an absolute fact, right? We can know that it's a fact because the boss is going to know that husband was at work for 30 minutes longer. The waiter's going to know that they were holding a table for an extra 30 minutes. The wife is going to know. Everybody's on the same page that yes, husband was 30 minutes late. But everything else that she shared with me was just story. And she was making his delay mean a lot of things. She was making his 30-minute tardiness mean that he didn't respect her, that he didn't care about her. She made it mean that their marriage was falling apart. But once we were able to separate out the story from the facts, then something really interesting happened. She suddenly had the space to consider other possibilities, to consider other stories to tell herself that wouldn't be as painful for her. And this wasn't coming from a place of trying to lie to herself or trying to pretend that everything was perfect in her marriage. But instead, it was coming from a newfound knowledge that there's always multiple ways to think about something. For example, another thought that she might have is, boy, my husband really works so hard for our family, and sometimes that means he's going to be late. Or she might think, boy, since he's 30 minutes late, I can tell that we've both had a really long day. It will be so nice for us to unwind together once he gets here. And how do you think those thoughts would make her feel about her husband? So if she's sitting in that restaurant and she's thinking, he doesn't respect me, he doesn't care about me, how is she going to be greeting her husband when he walks in? More than likely, he's going to be met with frustration. She's probably going to be cold. She's going to be a little bit guarded. She might be angry and prickly. And how will that be impacting their relationship? But if she's thinking thoughts like, boy, he sure does work hard for our family. I'm really excited to see him when he gets here. Then the entire interaction changes. So it's the exact same situation. Husband is 30 minutes late, but her story about it has changed how it is that she feels about the situation, and it's changing how she's showing up in that relationship. And that new thought is going to create a completely different experience. That new thought is going to mean the difference between empathy and connection and conflict and disconnect. Our thoughts shape not only how we feel, but how we show up in the world. And this is one of the ways that we unknowingly create a lot of unnecessary pain for ourselves. Now, I want to be really clear about something is I'm not saying that you just jump into toxic positivity. I'm not saying that you excuse bad behavior or that you avoid holding other people accountable. There are absolutely times when somebody's actions need to be addressed. But when we are immediately assuming the worst interpretation of a situation, then we often create conflict where really, truly, there just didn't need to be any. Separating out the facts from the stories, it just gives you more choices in life. It allows you to respond intentionally instead of reacting emotionally. All right, let me give you another example. Imagine for a moment that you texted your friend and it's been several hours and they haven't responded. Now, we've all been in that situation, right? So what is the fact in that situation? The fact is, I sent a text and they haven't responded yet. But what are the stories that we often create around this very situation? We might be thinking, you know what, they're ignoring me. They must be upset with me. I must have said or done something wrong. They don't actually value me or this friendship. And if you're somebody who is highly sensitive, your brain is going to be jumping from story to story. There's going to be a lot of emotion behind that. But meanwhile, your friend, they might just be in a meeting. They might be driving. Maybe they forgot to turn off their do not disturb. Maybe they're dealing with a family issue. Maybe their battery's dead. Maybe they're just having a really busy day. But because of the story that we've created, then now you might find that you've spent hours feeling anxious or rejected in a friendship that, guess what, you actually like the person. But you've created a lot of negative emotion for yourself. Or another example might be at work. Maybe your boss sends you an email and it just says, hey, can you stop by my office later? And then suddenly your brain goes into overdrive. You're thinking, oh no, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong? Are they unhappy with my performance? But the neutral fact is that your boss, they just asked if they could see you. That's it. Everything else is just an interpretation. And when we start to become more aware of how quickly our brains are creating those stories, then we gain the ability to just pause and question those very stories. We can ask ourselves, hey, what are the actual facts here? And what story am I telling myself about those facts? Sometimes just asking that question, it can help to alleviate a lot of anxiety. Because the truth is that our brains, they're wired to fill in the gaps. That's what brains were created to do, is to keep us safe. And our brain thinks, if I can just create the worst case scenario in my mind, then I'll be prepared for the worst case scenario. And that can be very, very helpful in some situations. And in other situations, it is just not helpful at all. When we don't have all of the information, our brain wants to create meaning. But the meaning that it creates is not always accurate, even if you have big feelings about it. And if the story that we're telling ourselves is creating a lot of unnecessary pain, then we have the option to just question it, to question the story. So we can ask ourselves questions like, okay, is that thought helpful? Is it kind? Is it creating the type of life and relationship that I want right now? And if the answer is no, guess what? You do not have to keep believing that thought. You can 100% choose a more supportive thought. And not one that's ignoring reality, but one that allows for more compassion. One that allows for more curiosity, and one that helps you to maintain the connections that you really want in life. So today I want to invite you to practice something simple. The next time that you feel yourself getting triggered or upset or anxious about something, just pause. Just pause and ask yourself, okay, what actually happened? And what is the story that I'm telling myself about what happened? Just create that separation, okay? It's just like separating out lights from dark. Separate out the facts from your story about it, and that can provide you with so much clarity. Because when you stop automatically believing every single thought that your brain offers you, then you begin to realize something that is really, truly powerful. You actually have more influence over your experience than you may have realized. And when you start choosing thoughts that create more understanding, that create more calm, and that create more connection, then your relationships with other people and your inner peace, they begin to shift in really powerful and meaningful ways. And that is where we can experience so much emotional freedom. So if, as you've been listening, if you're starting to realize that, man, I have sure spent a lot of years making myself miserable, if you're ready to change your default setting from assuming the worst to assuming the best, if you're ready to shift how it is that you think and feel about any specific situation, come and work with me. I'd love to work with you. Right now, I have 12-week packages available that allow us to look at your specific situation. Okay, we're able to look at your specific situation, about your specific default settings, your specific thoughts about a situation, and shift them in ways that are more supportive for you and the life that you want to create. So if you are ready to get started, then you can simply email me at MaryAnn@MaryAnnWalker.life or come to my website, MaryAnnWalker.life, to apply now, but I would love to work with you. All right, well, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a great week. Let's talk soon. Bye now.